Today is day 3 at the Turkana Basin Institute, and we went on an excursion to see some of the archaeological sites and get a real feel for how these bones and pottery and jewelry are collected, and the process through which archaeologists and the geologists go through to collect samples to understand the age of the items they find and the conditions under which they do all this work. And so we started at a place called, what was it called? It was called, not Napudet. It was a Miocene era site. And it was called Lakam. And yes, it was a beautiful drive from where we are at the Turkana Basin Institute. And if I'm not wrong, it was about an hour away. And so we went and saw the site. And I think it more physically looks like little shells clamped together. And what we understand is that the Lake Turkana's boundaries were past the site that we were touring. I think it's called Lakam. I don't know why I can't see it. So it's a Miocene era, and this is Napudet, Lothagam, Losidok, Moruoro, Nakwai, and Loperor. Those are the Miocene era sites. But then the area we were at is Nyakam, and Lokham. Lokham is the name. Yes, so Lothagam, Lokham. So that's why I'm getting lost there. But it was, they showed us how they go through evaluating a site. If they find something specific, how you're not supposed to even touch it. They usually geotag it, and then an archaeologist will come, review, and now start doing their research based on what they see. So it was a very interesting dig site to explore, and we found human jawbone, or we saw what looked like a human jawbone. We saw hippopotamus bones. We saw turtle shells, and there was a part where it is the elephant footprints. And so it is a beautiful yet very desolate landscape. So we explored the area. It's fun collecting rocks, playing with the sand, understanding the topography, and we spent some time there. And then now we doubled, because that was the farthest site. And then now we came to the pillar site, which is most notably acknowledged as a burial site. It was a sacred site. It was a place where the Turkana people came to sacrifice animals, have celebrations, hear and kind of resolve disputes. And from what we understand, there is anthropological evidence of more storytelling or of the place being that for the Turkana people. And this is anthropological. Archaeologically, they do not dig at this pillar site. what there are big blocks of stone that you can see over time have been buried by sand, buried by time. Yet these stones also look out of place compared to the greater geography and the topography of the area. So there is something there. The stones are laid out in circles, and apparently the circles denote or mark grave sites. And those obelisks or stone pillars, to be more specific or descriptive, is showing that the stone pillars or blocks of stone, that this was a sacred site. So it was very affirming, and it makes us realize how we sit both in knowledge and in ignorance at the same time, that we are a contradiction in terms of that, because in our DNA, we carry with us a lot of information about our abilities, what we ate, what our lineage is, yet mentally we do not know this information. So there's a duality in that being. It's like space travel, it's like time travel rather. It is like, and also space travel, because this is a different place from where we find ourselves most of the time. And it's like you have to travel so far to come back. And we're talking about over 10,000 years. We're talking about what we consider in the greater scope, like there are these categories. So there's a Holocene period, which is what the pillar sites are part of. So 11,700 years up to date, that's the Holocene period. And these pillar sites are in that category. So then there was also the reddish, like in the horizon, when you look at the cliffs, at the valleys, you see a reddish tint, and that denotes the Miocene era, which is also part of what is there at Lothagam, at Napudet. And it was just very, the topography is very interesting in that way, because there's like, it looks kind of haphazard because it's like a lot of rubble, a lot of sand, a lot of stones. But when you look closer, when you dial down, you will see bits of bone, bits of what look like turtle shells. You will see footprints. You will see, all these things. So there's a lot of information there, although it looks empty, right? So there's that contradiction. Contradiction of time and space, the contradiction of knowing, not knowing, yet it is contained within the same body. And there's also the contradiction of what things appear to be and what it is like when you dial deeper. So we did that, and then as we were coming back to the Turkana Basin Institute, we tried to go to the shores of Lake Turkana. But what we found was that there was no, from where we were, there was no clear place where we could interact with Lake Turkana without disrupting the villages that live along Lake Victoria. And what we saw is that the waters have moved further inland, rather, or further, like the Turkana has expanded its banks, rather. And this has also displaced locals and communities and villages. And you can see abandoned houses, huts that are underwater, and that's why even the population that lives near the lake builds very temporary housing, because they can move at a moment's notice depending on how the lake is behaving. So we drove through a village to get to the banks of Lake Turkana, and we saw that it should be too disruptive. So we just made a U-turn and came back to TBI. So some of those considerations, like you do not want to disrespect the people that live in these areas by just coming and standing there and looking at their lives and kind of scrutinizing their way of life. But we still observe, as we are moving through this landscape, not only the archaeological sites, but how the people move with their cattle, how they live by, like in relation to their geography, the lakes, the savanna, and yes, so there's a lot to just visually see without being very touristy about it, and still being respectful of their culture and their way of life. So all in all, it was a very intense day. There was a lot of hiking involved. The second site where the pillar sites were, had like where we parked our Land Cruiser. Where the Land Cruiser was parked, they had these palms that bear fruit. It's a variety of palm that bears fruit, and apparently it's one of those things that the Turkana people gather as they take their cattle out to pasture. And what they do with this palm is that they dry it in the sun, and then they mix it with like cattle blood, which is goat blood or cow blood, and then they dry it again, and then they're able to store it for drought, like to serve as food during periods of drought. And I thought that was a very interesting tidbit that I thought I wanted to share, especially when we talk about foods that are unique to this region, or that are typical traditional foods for Turkana people based on the environment they're in. So it was interesting to learn these things and just observe how the schools and government offices are laid out in an area like this, how people move through this terrain, and just try to compare that to, not necessarily in any comparative way, just as an observer, as a poet. You want to observe so that it informs your writing, and that you learn something, or it adds to your vocabulary, it adds to your experience as you are writing your poetry. So that is something that I found very valuable today. And even just sitting in the valley as we were having lunch, and just sitting in the sand and under the shade of a palm tree was very beautiful, very in nature, with nature, just appreciating the environment. And we were prepared for it to be hot and dusty as we were trekking up and down these sites. But all in all, I think we all did great. Our colleagues from India, expected, I guess, more heat, and they were very comfortable in the Turkana heat. I'm also appreciating the Turkana climate. I know we've come in the month of May, which is typically the coldest compared to where I usually live in Nairobi. And so I am glad that this weather is like not oppressive at all, and that I can be comfortable even though we are sleeping on the veranda of our cabin. And I really love that. So far so good. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying being out in nature, and I feel like the challenge here is also to spend more time out in nature, not to sit indoors as much as I do, and be more explorative about the spaces where I can sit and do the things I need to do. Sit outside and write, take a walk and write, sit in a garden and just, play, instead of confining myself to a desk and chair all the time. So that, in a nutshell, a very long-winded way, is a recap of day 3. I want to write a tanka, which is like a 31-syllable poem or something, and then wrap this up and call it a day for day 3. Until day 4, see you next time.